And the point in the program where we have to pay the piper, but the piper and the sword bearer are both underage and we need to watch what we do in the Legion. So the Haggis bearer, he volunteered that we could pay him. The address to the Haggis by Robbie Burns. Wherefore your honest, sonsy face, great chieftain o' the pardon race, I bid them all you take your place, pinch, tripe, or thorn, will are you worthy o' grace, as lang's my earn. The groaning trencher, there you fell. Your hearties, oh, like a distant hell, your pen would help to mend the mill in time of need, while through your pores the juice distill like amber bead. His knife, see rustic labour, dicht, and cut thee up wi' ready slicht, trenching thy gushing entrails bricht like ony ditch. And then, oh, what a glorious sight, worm-reeking, rich. Then horn for horn, they stretch and strive, deal tack a hindmost, on they drive, till all their wheel-swallowed kites alive are bent like drums. And old Goodman, mace like rive, but thank it, hums. Is there that o'er his French ragout, or olio that would star us out, or fricassee would make her spew with perfect scunner, looks done with sneering, scornful view at sic a dinner? Poor devil, see him o'er his trash, as feckless as a withered rash, his spindle shank, a good whiplash, his knee and net through bloody flutter field they dash. Oh, how unfit! But mark the rustic, Haggis fed, the trembling earth resounds his tread, clapping his wailing knee, a blade, he'll make it whistle, and legs, and arms, and heaps will sned like taps o' thistle. Ye powers, wha mak mankind your care and dish them out their bill of fare. All Scotland wants nae skinking where the champs in luggies. But if you wish her grateful prayer, gie her a haggis. Now Stephen is going to give us the grace, the Selkirk grace.
Join me in prayer, will you, please? Some hae meat and cannot eat, and some would eat hae want it. But we hae meat and we can eat, say let the Laird be thanked. Amen.
That actually smells good. Yeah.
This evening, the Innisfail Legion Pipe Band, along with our MacLeod of Lewis Dance Studio. Take it away, Michael. I should say Marion. Marion's in charge this time.
Roll to the outs. 2 more. Now, roll. 1, 2.
thanks in settling down. I see here that on the bottom of Robbie Burns' picture, it says, support your local pipe band. Now, that's not a quote from Robbie Burns, but I want to thank you very much for supporting Robbie Burns Night and the Innisfail Legion Pipe Band. And thank you so much for buying tickets. Last year, and we were sold out for this year the first week in December. So next October, November, when I come looking to sell you tickets, or someone in the pipe band does, grab a hold of them right away. Don't say, oh, I'll let you know, I have to check with them. Get them right away. Thank you for your support. And while I would, yes, good man, yeah, give me some applause, come on. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the haggis. I certainly did, and I hope you were having some whiskey with it, because they say, Robbie Burns says, whiskey and freedom gang together. Which reminds me, I think we have to check the Wexit Manifesto to see if they mention whiskey in it. Robbie Burns was a man who wrote lots of poetry about love. And these, I want to give you two poems about love. And the one is called Mary Morrison. So I'm in favor of the Morrisons, they'll be buying me whiskey. Oh Mary, at thy window be, it is the wish that trysted o'er. Those smiles and glances let me see, which make the miser's treasure poor. How blithely would I bide the stour, a weary slave frae sun to sun, could I the rich reward secure, the lovely Mary Morrison. Yestreen, when to the trembling string the dance gaed through the lichted hall, to thee my fancy took a swing. I sat, but neither heard nor saw, though this was fair, and that was braw, and yon, the toast of all the tune. I sighed and said amongst them all, ye are not Mary Morrison. Oh Mary, canst thou wreck his peace, wha for thy sake would gladly die? Or canst thou break the heart of his, was only for is loving thee? If love for love thou wilt not give, at least be pity to me shown. A thought ungentle cannot be the thought of Mary Morrison. That's what they're talking about. Now, the next love poem, Carol, he'll have to explain this to you himself. This is the special love poem that Doug Lorraine requests every year, and it's about John. No, he's straight, just the same way he likes his whiskey. John Barleycorn. You'll have to go home and yawn at home. You can't do it here. John Barleycorn, not a man, John Barleycorn. The grains of barley, how they're planted in the ground, how they grow, how they're harvested, and how they're made into that wonderful drink, whiskey. Right? There was 3 kings into the east. 3 kings made great and high, and they had sworn a solemn oath John Barleycorn should die. They took a plough and ploughed him down, put clods upon his heat, and they hae sworn a solemn oath John Barleycorn was dead. But the gentle spring came kindly on, and showers began to fall. John Barleycorn got up again, and sore surprised them all. The sultry suns of summer came, and he grew thick and strong, as he grew armed with pointed spears, that no one should him wrong. The sober autumn entered mild, and he grew wan and pale, his bending joints and dripping heat showed he began to fail. His colour sickened more and more. He faded into age, and then his enemies began to show their deadly rage. They've ta'en a weapon, lang and sharp, and cut him by the knee. They've tied him fast upon a cart like a rogue for forgery. They laid him down upon his back and cudgelled him full sore. They hung him up before the storm and turned him o'er and o'er. They filled up a darksome pit with water to the brim. They heaved in John Barleycorn. There let him sink or swim. They laid him down upon the floor to work him further woe, and still as signs of life appeared, they tossed him to and fro. They wasted with a scorching flame the marrow of his bones. But a miller used him worst of all, for he ground him between two stones. And he ta'en his very heart's blood, and drunk it round and round. And still, the more and more they drank, their joy did more abound. John Barleycorn was a hero bold of noble enterprise, for if you do but taste his blood, 'twill make your courage rise, 'twill make a man forget his woe, 'twill heighten all his joy. 'Twould make the widow's heart to sing, though the tear were in her eye. Then let us toast John Barleycorn, each man a glass in hand, and may his great posterity ne'er fail in all Scotland. John Barleycorn.
All right, next up, the Twa Lands, Don MacLeod.
How am I supposed to follow that? The Twa Lands, such a long history of the Scots choosing to come to Canada. They were well suited though, as they came from a very, very rugged environment with a challenging climate, such as Canada. So the Scots came, and why did they come? Well, whether it was a lure of the secure employment with the Hudson Bay Company, it attracted many of the tough, resourceful men of the Orkney Islands, or the unfortunate crofters who were evicted from their land, by landlords who preferred to have sheep than people, or the promise of farming land by the Canadian government, the promise of a better life. So they came. Many ships were bound for Nova Scotia. In the late 1800s, there were 80,000 Scots making the perilous sea journey. Between 1901 and 1931, it was estimated between 370 and 440,000 Scots emigrated, making up at least 16% of the total population of Canada. And it's interesting that they took a census in 2005, I think, and it's still at 16%, so we're keeping that population going. And also, there were many, many well-educated and hard-working men and women who came across the seas, such the like of Sir John A. Macdonald. And indeed, in the late 1800s, 1880, my great-grandfather, John MacLeod, born in 1847, he emigrated from Inverness, settling in Manitoba, and there farming near a small community called Minnedosa. He farmed there until he retired, and his son, my grandfather, Jack MacLeod, took over the farm and continued farming until his retirement in Brandon, Manitoba. It is a testament to the strength and endurance of these early settlers who, grappling with an unyielding environment, persevered to build a better life. And in doing so, they became firmly woven into the fabric of Canada. And so we gather here once a year to celebrate Robbie Burns. This celebration was continued in Canada since 1798. 1798 was the first Burns Supper and was celebrated by the St. Andrew's Society of St. John in New Brunswick. But why does it continue? Why does the Burns Night continue? Well, perhaps it may come to symbolize Scotland itself, for all those who wishing to wax nostalgic about the old Scotia. Perhaps to raise a glass to the country's national poet, or sing along with Auld Lang Syne, his most famous song. Or perhaps just to savor that rebellious naughtiness of the bad boy poet who flouted the church teachings and had more of his share of good luck with the Lassies. So whatever reason, it is now time to celebrate both the old and the new. I ask you all to charge your glasses to toast the Twa Lads.
All right. Next up with a toast to the Lassies, Tyler Wallace. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those who don't know me, my name is Tyler Wallace. I joined the Innisfail Legion Pipe Band 1 year ago, having come from Medicine Hat. My fiancée Katie, who is also from the South, moved with me. I always told her that I would buy her a ring when I got a big boy job. Well, I got hired as a firefighter, so you guessed it, my first big purchase was a ring. Now, since popping the big question and beginning to prepare for married life, I couldn't help but notice a few differences between lads and lassies. For example, grooming. A bathroom in the average bachelor pad contains no more than 7 items. A toothbrush with not too many bristles left on it. A tube of toothpaste, squeezed from the middle. A razor, some shaving cream, deodorant, and some 3-in-1 shampoo, conditioner, and body wash. And an old towel. The lassies, on the other hand, 497 items on average. 490 of those items the average man can't name. Katie and I share the bathroom at home, and by share, I mean I have a little space on the counter for my hygiene kit, and she takes the cabinets and the drawers.
Hold on, Katie!
Another difference between lads and lassies I've noticed is the definition of organized. Now, us lads can acquire a lot of stuff when we move into a house, but for the most part, we know where all these things are. They might not all fit neatly into a closet, or they may take up space in a basement, but these things are usually kept with other similar things. Now, lassies, on the other hand, have a very different opinion of organized. Growing up, my mother, Trish Wallace, she's here today with us. Hi, Mom. How you doing? My mother kept the house spotless. Anything that was left out was quickly put away. Somewhere. My mother knows where everything is in our house. My dad isn't so lucky. My dad likes to say, every day is an Easter egg hunt, because you never know what you're going to find where. I can't imagine how Robbie Burns could keep track of his writings with all the numerous women in his life organizing his house. Robbie Burns loved women, but Burns didn't just love women for their physical charms. He was an outspoken advocate for them. He publicly proclaimed that women should be treated equally and have the same rights as men, and this was a very radical idea at the time. While quacks of state must each produce his plan, and even children lisp the rights of man. Amid this mighty fuss, just let me mention, the rights of women merit some attention. Burns believed that we should love and celebrate women, not for what they do for us, not because they attract our affection, but because they have an inherent right to our respect and devotion. Gentlemen, if you can, please be upstanding. And please join me in a toast to our mothers, our teachers, and our students, our bosses and employees, our friends, and those fortunate enough to be or have sisters, wives, daughters, and granddaughters. Gentlemen, to the Lassies.
Well done, Tyler. All right, with the reply, Caitlin Cullen, his fiance.
It's my turn now. Just 1 minute, gotta get organized. Oh, I just played myself. Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you might have guessed by now, I'm the aforementioned fiance, Katie. Sorry, this is a little short for me. I'm delighted to be attending my 4th Burns supper. The last 3 were in Medicine Hat, as Tyler mentioned earlier. But also to be giving the reply on the behalf of the Lassies. Not only to give the reply, but also to be replying to such a fine specimen, such as Mr. Tyler Wallace. Well, Lassies, I'm told it's a great privilege to give the reply to the toast from the laddies. Perhaps the person who made such a statement hadn't met my fiancé Tyler. Nonetheless, I want to thank him for his thought-provoking speech. He spoke so eloquently, and I must admit, rather long-windedly, about my many qualities and that of the Lassies in general. I also must thank him for further proving that laddies indisputably need their lassies. We see such potential in our laddies. Since we were created to help one another, of course we come alongside them, give them all the encouragement they could ask for. Trouble is, they don't ask for it. And they don't listen to it when we graciously give it to them anyway. Take my case. When the lawnmower broke down and wouldn't run, the lassie kept hinting to her laddie to get it fixed. Somehow the lad always found some reason not to get it done, something else to take care of first. First the shed, the boat, go fishing for the day. Always something more important. Finally, the lass thought of a clever way to make her point. When the lad arrived home from work that day, he found the lassie sitting in the tall grass, busily snipping away with a tiny pair of sewing scissors. The laddie watched her very curiously for a short time, and then he went inside the house. He came out again, handed her a toothbrush, saying to the lassie, "When you finish cutting the grass, you might as well sweep the driveway." The doctors say he will walk again, but he will always have a limp. Ah yes, there are times though when our laddies truly try and assist us in our tasks. Take the laddie who asked if he could assist in preparing a meal. Gratefully, his lass said, "Take this bag of tatties, peel half of them, put them in the pot to boil." After a short while, pleased to have such willing help, the lassie went to check on her tatties. 1 second. And here's what she saw. Yes, I feel that this evening. I'm glad someone likes these jokes. Open conversation is a healthy portion in any relationship, and we all know Robbie Burns had a keen way with words, especially when it came to the lassies. However, there are instances where we're best to keep things to ourselves. Take the husband and wife who paid a visit to the bank. The lad and his lassie were making a deposit when an armed robber burst into the Bank of Scotland in Edinburgh, and he forced the tellers to load a sack full of cash. On his way out the door, one brave Scottish customer grabbed the hood, pulled it off, revealing the robber's face. The robber shot the Scotsman without hesitation. He then looked around the bank to see if anyone else had seen him. One of the tellers looked straight at him, and the robber walked over and calmly shot him in the face. Everyone by now was very scared and looking down at the floor. "Did anyone else see my face?" shouted the robber. I think you know the punchline. That's good, okay. All right. Shouted the robber. There were a few moments of silence. Then one elderly Scottish lady, looking down, tentatively raised her hand and said, I think my husband might have caught a glimpse. Yes, lads and lassies do indeed have their differences, and we so lovingly remind one another of our quirks. Our laddies graciously admire us, love us, put up with us, always pay attention when we have something to say, remind us to be humble, and they're our greatest cheerleaders in life. In the immortal words of Robbie Burns, a man's a man for all that. So lassies, please be upstanding and join me in a toast.
That's okay.
To the laddies.
Wow, there must be some conversations this evening between those two. That would be pure entertainment. Well done. All right, next up is some Burns poetry. To a Mouse, Jill Campbell. Yes. Hello, hello.
We sleekit coon, timorous beastie. Oh, what panic's in thy breastie? Thou needna start awa so hasty with bicker and brattle. I would be loath to rin and chase thee with mud and pattle. I'm truly sorry, man's dominion has broken nature's social union and justifies that ill opinion which makes thee startle at me, thy pair earth-born companion and fellow mortal. I doubt no whiles, but thou may thieve. What then? Ah, poor beastie, thou mun live. A demonic and a thrave's a small request. I'll get a blessing with a lave and never miss it. You're a wee bit hussy, too, in a ruin. It's silly was, the winds are strewing, and nothing now to beg a new one of foggage green. And bleak December's winds ensuing, with snell and keen. You saw the fields laid bare and vast, and weary winter coming fast, and cosy here beneath the blast thou thought to dwell, till crash the cruel coulter past out through thy cell. That wee bit heap o' leaves and stubble has cost thee mony a weary nibble. Now thou's turned out for all thy trouble, but house or hold to thole the winter sleety dribble and cran the roo, och God. But Mousie, thou art no thy lane, and proving foresight may be vain. See, the best laid schemes of mice and men gan after gley, and lay us naught but grief and pain for promised joy. Still, thou art blessed. Compared with me, the present only touches thee, but oh, a backward cast my eye on prospects drear, and forward, though I canna see, I guess, and fear.
Next up is a song, a Burns song, A Red, Red Rose by Marilyn Mann.
Robbie Burns. Burns worked for the final 7 years of his life on projects to preserve traditional Scottish songs for the future. In all, Burns had a hand in preserving over 300 songs for posterity, the most famous being Auld Lang Syne. Burns referred to it as a simple old Scots song which I had picked up in the country. Now, we're not sure how many women he sang this to, but the lyrics of the song are simple but effective. My love's like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. It describes a love that is both fresh and long-lasting. Oh, my love. like a melody that's sweetly played in tune. As fair art thou, my bonny love, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry, till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun, and I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run, and fare thee well, my only love, and fare thee well awhile, and I will come again, my dear, though it were 10,000 miles. Oh, my love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love is like a melody that's sweetly sung in tune. As fair art thou, my bonny love, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, until the seas gang dry.
Thanks, Marilyn. All right, up next, the Immortal Memory, Jocelyn Dye.
Good evening. My name is Jocelyn Dye, and tonight I present to you the immortal memory of Robert Burns. At a Burns celebration in Glasgow a few years ago, Frank Shaw put it best. There's a Mexican tradition that states you die 3 times. You die once when you cease to breathe. The second death is experienced when you are buried. And the third death is when your name is never spoken again. Robert Burns will never experience the third death. How is it that a humble Scotsman, born 261 years ago in a single-room thatched cottage, has permeated our culture and transcended time and continue to be so relevant? His themes are universal, and his thoughts were decades ahead of his time. Robert was born January 25th, 1759, south of Ayr in Alloway. He was the eldest of 7 born to William and Agnes Burns. Life on the farm was not glamorous, but his father ensured that Robert and his siblings had some education, which was largely provided by William. They were taught reading, writing, arithmetic, geography, and history. A teacher in Ayr did provide some Latin and French for some time. No one could say that this farm boy was not a learned man. Robert's father suffered a consistent wave of bad luck, which saw the Burns family move from farm to farm. The poverty and hard manual labor contributed to ill health that plagued Robert his entire life, likely being the cause of his early death. After William's death, Robert and his brother Gilbert tried to keep the farm, but financial difficulties stifled his farming dreams. In 1786, he accepted an offer of work that would take him to Jamaica, but a wee lass and some publishing success charted the course that set the bard on his way to becoming the greatest Scot. July 31st, 1786, saw Robert's first volume of published poems. Titled Poems Chiefly in the Scottish Dialect, or commonly known as the Kilmarnock volume, was an immediate and overwhelming success. Upon this publication, Robert set off to Edinburgh rather than emigrate to Jamaica as had been his plan. The success of the Kilmarnock volume saw Robert continue to pen poetry and song, tour Scotland, as well as collect the numerous songs of his countrymen. As Marilyn mentioned, he set many old Scottish poems to music during this time, including Auld Lang Syne. With his wife and children, he took up a tenant farming position in Dumfriesshire, but money was still a problem while farming and raising children. He packed up and moved the family to Dumfries in 1791, where he worked as an excise officer until his death at 37 years old on July 21st, 1796. Forever a man who loved women, his last song was written for the girl who had nursed him through his illness. Fitting, as it was for another lass that he wrote his first. Robert was 15 years old, toiling in the fields alongside Nellie Kirkpatrick, honing his literary and love skills as he worked. Handsome Nell was his first love song that she was known to sing as she worked. Once I loved a bonny lass, aye, and I love her still, and whilst that virtue warms my breast, I'll love my handsome Nell. While not his greatest work, it was his first, and it retained a place of sentiment in his heart forever. Robert had 12 children to 4 different women. His first was born to his mother's servant. 9 of his children were born to his wife, Jeanne Armour. His last child, Maxwell, was born as Robert's funeral procession made its way to his final resting place. So what is it that makes Robert Burns still relevant to this day? Is it his innate understanding of the human condition? His ability to empathize with all creatures? The satire, hypocrisy, love, lust, humor. Few have made a mark on the world like this humble Scottish lad. 5 years after his death, the first Burns Supper was held in memoriam by his friends on July 21st. Now, the first Burns Supper as we know it today was held on the 29th of January, 1802, by a group of merchants, many who knew Burns, that styled themselves as the Greenock Burns Club, considering themselves the Mother Club. In 1803, they corrected the date to January 25th to reflect Burns' birthday. Nowadays, the memory of Robert Burns is celebrated around the world. An estimated 9 million people took part in Burns Suppers in 2009 for the 250th anniversary. I find it interesting how much Robert Burns has influenced popular culture. His likeness can be found on items such as postcards, stamps, the 10-pound Scottish banknote, Coca-Cola bottles, and statues. Robert Burns is the 3rd most popular subject of statues around the world. Only Queen Elizabeth II and Christopher Columbus have more statues. Japan wouldn't seem a place that you find Scottish culture, but they are avid lovers of all things Scot, from whiskey distilleries to pipe bands, Scot, and Burns clubs that go back years. Crosswalks that play Burns songs. They love Scots and Robert Burns. Auld Lang Syne is one of the 3 most popular songs in the English language. In Japan, it is played before stores close, as a warning to get out. This Burns song was, for a time, the national anthem of Korea. It has also appeared in over 170 Hollywood films. 2 American authors have Burns references in the titles of their classic novels. Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger references the song Coming Through the Rye. And John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men is a line, as we heard by Jill, from To a Mouse. Marilyn saying us a song earlier that Bob Dylan says influenced his music. Another pop culture icon was greatly influenced by the Bard. Michael Jackson was an avid fan. He recorded an album of Burns songs with David Guest, and the music video for Thriller was based on the Burns poem Tam O'Shanter. When Tam O'Shanter reaches the kirkyard, he sees warlocks and witches in a dance, nae cotillion brent new for France, but hornpipes, jigs, this is tricky. Straps, spays, and reels, put life and metal in their heels. A winnock bunker in the east, their saddled in shape of beast. A towsy tight, black, grim and large, to give music was his charge. He screwed the pipes and yart them skirled, till rook and rafters they did Daryl. So if you've ever watched the music video for Thriller, I think Jackson did justice to the devilish Kaylee in the graveyard. Tam O'Shanter is one of Burns' greatest works and one of my favorites. A tale of a wild drunken ride on his mare Meg, Tam encounters witches and warlocks, the devil and whiskey and cutty sarks. You might want to Google that poem, might help you with your quiz. Just saying. I would venture a guess that Robert Burns' poetry has traveled the farthest. In 2010, astronaut Nick Patrick was given a miniature book of Burns' poetry by young Scottish students. This book boarded the Endeavour to the International Space Station, where it traveled 5.7 million miles and orbited the Earth 217 times. It's a shame that Burns' poetry isn't taught in schools anymore. Not only are they great literary works, Burns is an interesting man that can't help be drawn to people who challenge the status quo. At a time when politics were rarely discussed and it was dangerous to do so, Burns' poetry was patriotic and radical. He took on class inequalities, gender roles, the church, poverty, sexuality, and cultural identity. He was a great consumer of the social aspect of life, and this can be seen in his poetry. He was never one to pass up a dram of good whiskey or to let a great song not be sung. These subjects, maybe more so than ever, are applicable to our world today. Maybe this is why Burns resonates with us as fresh today as it did 200 years ago. I encourage everyone to find their favorite Burns work. I mentioned Tam O'Shanter earlier, but my all-time favorite strikes my heart to its core with just a few words and a couple of stanzas. This ability to convey such rich emotion is a Burns trademark. My heart's in the Highlands. My heart is not here. My heart's in the Highlands, a chasing the deer, chasing the wild deer and following the roe. My heart is in the Highlands, wherever I go. So I ask everyone to stand and raise your glass and join me in a toast to the immortal memory of Robert Burns. Salanja.
All right, next up, Dennis, it's quiz time. But one last round of applause for our poets, singers, and presenters. All right, Dennis, let's get on with the quiz results.
All right, so if most of you, like me, were paying attention to the Immortal memory, you know that it was absolutely chock full of interesting facts and tidbits and answers to the quiz. So if you were paying attention, and I hope that you were, hopefully we'll have some good, have some good marks.
The band is now going to play Auld Lang Syne, and we'd invite you to come and join us in a circle around the pipe band, join hands, and then we will lead you in singing Auld Lang Syne. For Auld